more people start to adopt AM for the manufacture of production parts, we will have to consider printing material and recycling marks on the parts.
I think the short answer to that is yes. We need to, if we're a future manufacturing technology, we obviously need to consider the circular economy and recycling. It's critical that we do. It's not just the recycling, but it's the energy and consumable consumption within the processes as well. At the moment, recycling within the AM sector is mainly focused on recycling unprinted powder and making sure you can reuse that. But it needs to move a step on. It needs to go beyond that and looking at using recycled materials and the recycling of parts printed. But I think the long answer is that it opens up a huge debate around the materials, which is true in both metals and polymers. On the polymer side, there's about 85,000 different injection molded polymers that you can choose from. So pretty much any sort of thing that you need is available. And in AM, there's maybe 100 or something. And it's really hard in those service centres that we just talked about to find ones that have the exact material that you want. So at the moment, everybody is compromising on the material choices, and it's exactly the same in metals as well. There's still not that many metals out there, and they are different. And that's something we have to accept, is that any manufacturing process forms a material in a different way, and it will have different material properties. So the end user has to be educated that you will get a different material property. You should never expect it to be the same. A forging material is different from a cast material, is different from a machine material, and different from an AM material. But there's a massive amount of work in the AM sector to qualify more materials. And then if you add the recycling of those in, there's even more work to do. It's probably a barrier, going back to the survey results, it's probably one of the barriers that exist. You can prototype in a similar material, but when you go into manufacturing, you want the material, and that's probably not available at the moment in AM. But from Voxeljet's perspective, on our powder sintering processes, we've got a backlog of something like 25 or 27 different materials to qualify that people have asked us to qualify, and each material takes a minimum of 6 months to go through the whole process, to understand it, to get the process settings right, and look at consistency and conformity across builds. We then add in recycling to that, and it takes even longer. So we've got decades just at Voxeljet, decades of work just to qualify the materials that people have asked us for today. If we're trying to get to 85,000, there's a long way to go. And to add in the recycling just adds another dimension. But it needs to happen. It does need to happen. And in fact, I recently contacted a polypropylene project, a recycling project for polypropylene, which is an EU-funded project. And I contacted them in a hope we could do some sort of work together, appreciating that AM sector is very small compared to other polymers. Polypropylene gets used in carpets, for example, so there's loads of it floating around. But they simply were not interested to talk to me at all. They said, we're not interested in 3D printing, it's just too small for us to get involved. So it's a real struggle, actually, as an OEM to manage this workload. And we definitely need, like we said before, we definitely need more collaboration from the materials providers, from recycling projects, from end users, about which materials to qualify first, and how much recycling needs to be considered within that. I think, a bit like we've mentioned before, there needs to be a bit more intervention from government to help both on the materials qualification, but then you can add in the recycling to that. You need funding, you need projects, you need cross-sector coordination. It probably comes down to a trade association. We don't really have a trade association that is focused on AM. It gets bolted on to other trade associations, and they all do a little bit because they see the market growing and they want to get some more members. But there's nobody focusing on AM solely across the sector, and maybe that's something that would help, certainly in the UK and maybe more widely across Europe, in terms of bringing all these needs together, because a lot of people dump it on the machine manufacturers, but to be fair, the machine manufacturers are focused on their machines and they can't do everything. So there definitely needs to be some cross-sector support in all these areas.